Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Tama Bina Ke Dayalu Jagat Samsare. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Tama Bina Ke Dayalu Jagat Samsare. Patita Pavana Hetu Tavavatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Behara. Patita Pavana Hetu Tavavatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Behara. Ha Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bola Kanakaro Ami Barodukhi. Ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bola Kanakaro Ami Barodukhi. Ha Swarnitapati Advaita Goshai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai Doya Koro Sitapati Advaita Goshai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai Dvaya Koro Sitapati Advaita Goshai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai. Ha Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Pata Juga Shideva Prabhu Lokanatha. Ha Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Pata Juga Shideva Prabhu Lokanatha. Daya Koroshi Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangha Bhage Narottamo Dasa. Daya Koroshi Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangha Bhage Narottamo Dasa. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koromore Tama Bina Kedoyalu Jagat Samsare. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koromore Tama Bina Kedoyalu Jagat Samsare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swaraj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Harival glorious to the sound devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. Isn't there a better place to put the book than on the harmonium? Om Agyanatamanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishta Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Siddhadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Shakapa Drivyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyam Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm not so sure where we're reading from. What is the verse? So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, at least, Canto 6, Chapter 6, the progeny of the daughters of Daksha. And what are we reading from? In any case, I'll read a little bit from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then I'll read the history of Narottam Das Thakur. Especially this chapter is a list of names of the dynasty. There's no purports. 45. 45. Oh, really? 45. There's no 45. chapter, Canto 6, chapter 5? Chapter 6. 6.6.1. Is the verse written on the board? On the screen. Shri Shuguvacha Tathak Pracheso Sikshnyam Anunita Swayambhuva Shastim Sanjanayam Asa Duhitri Pritri Vatsala Shri Shuguvacha Tathak Precho Taso Shikshnyam Anunita Swayambhuva Shastim Sanjanayam Asa Duhitri Pitri Vatsala. Ladies, Shri Shukuvacha, Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Tata, after that incident, Prechatasa Daksha Asiknyam, in his wife's name Aksikni, Anunita, pacified, Swayambhuva, by Lord Brahma, Shastim, 60, Sanjanayam Asa, begot, 2 daughters, Pitri Vatsala, all very affectionate to their father. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, My dear king, thereafter at the request of Lord Brahma, Prajapati Daksha, who is known as Prechatasa, begot 60 daughters in the womb of his wife Aksikni. All the daughters were very affectionate toward their father. Purport. After the incidents concerning the loss of his many sons, Daksha repented his misunderstanding with Narada Muni. Lord Brahma then saw Daksha and instructed him to beget children again. This time Daksha was very cautious to beget female children instead of male children, so that Narada Muni would not disturb them by urging them to accept the renounced order. Females are not meant for the renounced order of life. They should be faithful to their good husbands. For if a husband is competent for liberation, his wife will also achieve liberation with him. As stated in the Shastra, the results of a husband's pious activities are shared by his wife. Therefore, a woman's duty is to be very chaste and faithful to her husband. Then, without separate endeavor, she will share in the profit of the husband that the husband earns. All the profit the husband earns. So the translation again. Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, thereafter at the request of Lord Brahma, Prajapati Daksha, who is known as Prachatasa, begot 60 daughters in the womb of his wife Akshikni. All the daughters were very affectionate toward their father." Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatya De Satarane. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Shayak Swadamo Viguna Paradharmat Sunustitat Shay Dharme Nidinam Shayak Paradharmo Bhayavaha. This is in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna is talking about duty. Therefore he says, Shreyak Swadamo Viguna. It's better to perform one's own prescribed duty, even imperfectly, than to perform someone else's duty, even if one can do it perfectly. That destruction in the course of one's own duty is better because to follow someone else's duty is dangerous. Bhayavaha. In other words, although we may think ourselves to be this body, but actually we're not the body. But the body, as Krishna says, Sattvam Rajas Tama Iti Guna Prakriti Sambhava Ivananti Mahabaho Dehe Dehinam Aviyam. That the material body consists of 3 modes, namely goodness, passion, ignorance. And when the living entity comes in contact with these modes, he becomes conditioned by them. In other words, this yantra, this machine that we're in, it has certain qualities. And that qualities cannot be changed simply by mental speculation or some kind of imagination. Just like in the West now, or maybe in India too, who knows, people have come up with this idea that you can imagine yourself to be something and you'll actually become whatever you're imagining. Just like they did an interview at one university in America, in Oregon, named Portland University. And one interviewer, he went around to the students and he asked the students that, although he was a white American male, around 1 meter, so many centimeters, about the same height as myself. And he said, my dear students, if I thought myself that I was a 2 meter high Chinese woman basketball player, would you accept that? And he was asking the students and the video recording it. And the students said, yes, if you think you're a 2 meter high woman, Chinese woman, then of course we'll accept it. So this is hard to imagine what state of consciousness people must be in, that you're a male American, less than 2 meters high, a reporter, and people are accepting you as a Chinese woman, 2 meters high, basketball player. So is Mahatma Gandhi. when he went to England, the reporters inquired from him, "My dear sir, what do you think of British culture?" And his reply was, "I think it would be a good idea." In other words, actual culture is Krishna consciousness. As Chanaka Pandit says, Matrivat paradareshu, paradwareshu lostravat, atmavat sarvabhuteshu yakpashiti sapanditaha. That actual culture, human life begins when one develops some vision. The reason why we're listening, where we're hearing from the very beginning of our childhood, Kamara, Acharat, Pragyo, Dharman, Bhagavatan, Iha. Either from the beginning of our childhood, we hear about Bhagavad Dharma, or we hear nonsense. We don't have a choice when we're younger. Unfortunately, the society makes the choice for us. And from the beginning of our existence, sometimes children hear all kinds of nonsense things. That you are this body, that you belong to this country, that the business of life is simply to make money and enjoy life. So, we could call it brainwashing, because it does wash one's brain away. When Prabhupada was being accused of brainwashing his students, Prabhupada said, "Yes, I have the thankless task of washing their brains, which are made out of cow stool." But it's a very difficult task to wash stool, because it still remains stool no matter how much you wash it. In any case, real human life is meant to develop vision, and vision doesn't come from just hearing. Hearing is the beginning, but then one has to see from different angles of view what's being heard, so that one can actually develop perspective, see things with the eyes of knowledge. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ukramantam siddhim vapi bhunjana vagunanvita vimudo nanapashanti pashanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish, they cannot understand how the living entity quits his body, nor what kind of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But those whose eyes are trained with knowledge can see all this clearly. In other words, Krishna's instructions from the very beginning, the difference between our real selves and this identification with this body, either gross or subtle, this is actually knowledge. This is what differentiates a learned person from a fool. Ukramantam siddhim vapi bhunjana vagunanvitaha. Not only people don't know what's going to happen to them when they leave this body. They have no idea. Some people believe they're going to go through the pearly gates, and there'll be someone there with a book telling them that you did good and you're going to heaven forever, or you did bad and you're going to the fiery place where you're going to burn forever. That's the kind of vision. There's something truth to that, but that's not a very clear understanding, because Krishna says the body is changing all the time. It's not that we're going to come to some point in our existence where the body is going to start we're going to have to change our body. We're always changing our body. There's no time when our body's not changing. And yet we're still the same person we were when we were a child. And we'll be the same person in old age. And when we have to leave this body, we'll still be the same person. Therefore, the self-realized persons, those who are dhira and sober, they're not bewildered by all these changes. But those who are fools, and why are they fools? Because they've been heard from other fools. And they've developed the perspective, or the lack of it, of fools. Or as Krishna says, Chintyam aprayam cha pralayantam upashitya kama paboga paramam aitavan iti nischita. They believe that to gratify the senses unto the end of life is the prime necessity of human civilization, and therefore there can be no measurement for their anxiety. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yad indriya pritya aprinoti nisadamanye yat atmanoyam asannapi kleshada ashadeha. Nunam, Maharaj Rishabdev is saying, Nunam, indeed, amazing, unbelievable, pramatta, they become mad to perform vikarma, all kinds of sinful activities. They think lust, anger, greed, this is our heroes, this is our purpose of life, to cultivate these three things. Nunam pramata krute vikarma yadindriya pritya aprinoti nisadamanye. But an intelligent person, one who's a little sane, manye yata atmano, he doesn't try to gratify the senses unrestrictedly. Because he knows, asannapi kleshada ashadeha, he'll simply wind up in difficulty, in suffering, and then he'll have to take one body after another. Paravastada bodhajato yavan jignasyata atmatatvam yavan kriyastavadi dhammanomai karmatmaka yena sharira bandhaha. And therefore they're being defeated. The real defeat is that instead of conquering over the illusory energy, they're being defeated by illusion, because people are not inquiring about Atma Tattva, the real knowledge of the self and the Supreme Self. And therefore everything they're hearing, everything they're doing, everything they're desiring is simply covering their minds, their consciousness. And because their minds are covered, they don't see in the right perspective, and therefore they have to take one body after another. So, that perspective, Chanaka Pandit says, Matrivat Paradareshu, to see every lady except for one's mother to be like, to every lady to be like one's mother except for one's wife. So this is the beginning of human life, civilized life. What to speak of spiritual life? Paradareshu losrava. And to see everyone else's property to be like garbage in the street. Atmadvat sarvabhuteshu yakpashiti sapanditaha. This is the beginning of becoming intelligent, of becoming learned. And when one advances, then Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheswaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatpamam Shantim Rijite. If one can go practice these three things, then one can get out of the modes of nature. If one gives up this idea that I'm the proprietor, then one can get out of ignorance. And if one can give up this idea that I'm the enjoyer, then one can get out of passion. And one can understand how everyone is equal as on the spiritual platform, one can actually transcend goodness. And then understand that we're not we're not the proprietor, we're not the enjoyer, we're not the savior. So who is? Krishna is. He's the Lord of all the planets. He's the enjoyer of all sacrifice. He's the friend of all living entities. Then one can actually become peaceful, not trying to compete against Krishna. So this material world, we've come here to compete against Krishna. Everyone is assuming that they're either Romeo or they're Juliet, or a little lower than that, I'm Tarzan or I'm Jane, or I'm Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse. Everyone is assuming these roles in the material world, but they're all false. The real role, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us, is Gopi Bharata Padakamalayora Dasa Dasa Anudasa. That's our actual role. But while we're trying to come to that platform of becoming the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, we have a material body, and the material body has duties. And Srila Prabhupada says here that the duty of women in general is to serve their husband, and the duty of their husband is to serve the Guru, and the duty of the Guru is to serve Krishna's instructions, as he's given them in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literature. Everyone is meant to perform some duty, and while one is performing that duty, one should cultivate a sense of Krishna consciousness. It is not so important exactly which body we have. What's important is we utilize it in Krishna's service as he instructs us. And then one can come to the perfection of life by not getting caught up in trying to be something we're not. The only way we can try to become something we're not is to utilize this body, our intelligence, our words, according to Krishna's desire. Or as Krishna says, Chaitasa sarva karmani maya sanyasya matparaha buddhi yogam upashitya matsitak satatam bhava. And all activities depend upon me, work always under my protection, in such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. Or Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that to act in Krishna consciousness, one should not act as the master of the world. Just like a servant, one should act under the direction of the Supreme Master. One who's acting under the directions of the Supreme Master, he has no affection for profit and loss. He simply discharges his duty faithfully according to the order of his master. Or as Prabhupada writes in another place, just like one may work in a bank, he may count millions of dollars, but he doesn't consider even one rupee his own. So this is our whole sambandha. This is our whole knowledge. Everything here belongs to Krishna. That's it. If we understand that, we've understood the whole philosophy. But then we have to act on it if we really want to realize it. And that's called abhideya. And that abhideya is we have to find out from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Yak Shastra vidim utsrija vartate kamakarata nasasadim avatnoti nasukam na param gatim. One should know what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of Shastra, and knowing such regulations one should act so that gradually one will become purified. So Prabhupada is explaining here what the duty of a woman is, what the duty of a husband is, what the duty of everyone is, so that we can do that duty, and then we'll actually realize that Krishna is the proprietor, that he's the enjoyer. But beyond that, we have to, as Prabhupada writes in the same purport, that if one is not, Arjuna had the good fortune that he's with Krishna on the battlefield. So he could ask Krishna, what do you want me to do? Yatechasi tata kuru. Do what you want, I've explained everything, now do what you want. But my advice is, manmana bhava mad bhakto majaji mam namaskuru mama vaishasi satyam te prati jani priyosime. Always think of me, become my devotee. Worship me. Offer your homage to me. The result is you'll come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. And Krishna goes on. Give up everything else, surrender to me, give up all bad association, and go out and spread my message to everyone you meet. So Krishna explains this all to Arjuna, what his duty is. So we don't have the good fortune of Krishna being present before us like he was before Arjuna. But Prabhupada writes that if one hears from Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita, as well as under the guidance of Krishna's representative, then the result will be the same. We don't have to wait another lifetime of Brahma before we hear from Krishna. We can hear from Krishna directly in Bhagavad Gita. And those who are repeating the message of Krishna, they're as good as hearing from Krishna directly. And the result will be the same. What will be the same? We'll become Madparaha devotees. And what does Madpara mean? It means that one should have no goal in life save and accept, act in Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. It is not so easy to come to this platform, but it is possible gradually. That one should have no goal in life save and accept, act in Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. Anyone could do that. Man, woman, child, monkey. Hanuman was a monkey, but he was completely a Madparaha devotee. He is a Madparaha devotee. Garuda, he's also a Madparaha. Anyone can do it. It's simply a question of hearing from the right source and then taking up the process. Accepting, understanding how everything here belongs to Krishna, everything came from Krishna, and that is perfection of life. And then one can come to the platform of becoming Krishna's servant under the guidance of his representatives. And then one can come to the platform of doing everything just to please Krishna. One should have no goal in life, save and accept, act in Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. This is true equality on the spiritual platform. And then one should think only that I've been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna, and I'm doing it just to please him. So Prabhupada said, then one will naturally think about Krishna. If we want to think about Krishna all the time and never forget him, that's the process to follow. If we don't follow that process, then Maya will overtake us. Krishna bahir mukha bhoga vanchitare, nikatasta japati adare, tare japati adare. Then Maya is right there. If we want to become the proprietor, then Maya will give us the illusion. If we want to become the enjoyer, Maya will give us the illusion. We want to become the savior, Maya will give us the illusion. And if we want to become a devotee of Krishna by following the process, then Krishna dadami buddhi yogam tam, then Krishna will give us the intelligence to come to him. So the process is not so difficult. As Prabhupada said, it's simple for the simple, and it's difficult for the crooked. Just like one time, Prabhupada was in Dallas, where I was temple president, and I saw Prabhupada when he came there, and we were on a morning walk in White Rock Lake Park. And across the park, there's a big lake. And you only were allowed to walk on one side of the lake. And Prabhupada used to have his morning walk there. So during the morning walk, one of the devotees pointed out to Prabhupada a big estate across the lake. It was owned by Howard Hughes, the richest man in the world at that time. So Howard Hughes was a multi-billionaire, which was very unusual at that time. And the devotees one day, they went there to distribute a Bhagavad Gita to him. Unfortunately, the guards stopped him at the gate and said, "We're sorry, we cannot allow you to come in, but we will give Howard Hughes the Bhagavad Gita." So Prabhupada asked the devotees, he said, "Very nice, if you could have seen Howard Hughes, what would you have told him?" So the devotees said, "We would have told Howard Hughes that you're a very nice man, that we have a very nice school, we're educating the children, the youth in Krishna consciousness and God consciousness, so please give us some donation." Another devotee said, "My dear Howard Hughes, please chant Hare Krishna and be happy." So Prabhupada said, "No, if I would have seen Howard Hughes, I would have told him, 'My dear Howard Hughes, you've made so many billions of dollars by selling oil, but this oil belongs to Krishna. So you've stolen all this oil from Krishna. So one day, Krishna's representatives will come and drag you away and punish you. So give back this stolen goods to Krishna. So the devotees were quite surprised by how strongly Prabhupada was talking. But he one day revealed what he was talking about. He was on a morning walk on the roof of the Lotus building, actually the Long building. I guess that's the Lotus building in Mayapur. And he was surrounded by his followers and life members, and he would walk around. This isn't early, before they had the Conch building and other buildings. Actually, the Long building was really a long building. They had the Lotus building. And one devotee introduced one life member to Srila Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, this is our life member. He's a very good life member. We'd like to introduce you to him. So he's all dressed in khadi. He was a follower of Nehru. And Prabhupada said, oh, very nice to meet you. Hare Krishna, how are you doing? And what kind of business do you have? He said, well, I'm an industrialist. I make glass. So, oh, very nice, making glass. That's interesting. And where does glass come from? So the man said, it comes from sand, Swamiji. Oh, sand. Very nice. Where does sand come from? So the man was pious, and he said, it comes from Bhagavan, from Krishna. Oh, it comes from Bhagavan. So you're stealing from Bhagavan. And Prabhupada's eyebrows raised up. And the man became a little embarrassed, and he disappeared for the rest of the walk. But at the end of the walk, he came up to Srila Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, I just want to tell you, I give in charity. So Prabhupada's eyebrows raised up and said, oh, so you're a little thief. So it doesn't matter what we have. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter what we're doing. If we simply try to dedicate that energy to Krishna's service, then our life will become perfect. We don't have to stane stita shuddhagatam dhanuvang manobira. We can remain in any position. Pundarik Vidyanidhi was a great aristocrat, very wealthy, but he was a humble servant of Krishna. King Prataparudra was an emperor, practically speaking, but he was a humble servant of Krishna. Or Raghunath Das Goswami was a humble servant of Krishna. He had nothing. He was eating a little pat of buttermilk. But they were all on the same level, because whatever they had, they dedicated to Krishna's service, and therefore, due to their dedication, they were always immersed in the love for Radha and Krishna. Tyaktva dharma, tyaktva tornama shesha mandala pati Shrenim Sada Tuchavat Udvadina Guneshito Karunaya Gopina Kanta Shito Gopi Bhava Rasamrita Dilahari Kolola Mogna Mohur Gopi Bhava Rasamrita Dilahari Gopi Bhava Palor. That the 6 Goswamis, they gave up everything and they went as ordinary mendicants in Vrindavan begging from door to door. But they were so much enriched with the gopis' feelings of separation that they enjoyed transcendental pleasure at every moment. So that's our goal. Either we can stay in an aristocratic situation and serve Krishna in that, like Amrish Maharaj, or we can go to Vrindavan and live like ordinary mendicants. But the most important thing is to always remember Krishna and serve him in any circumstance. So today is the appearance day of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Srila Narottam Das Thakur is one of our acharyas in disciple succession. He appeared because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had desired him to appear to carry on the Sankirtan movement. There's esoteric understandings about him, how he's one of Chaitanya Krishna's personal associates, associate of Srimati Radharani, a follower of Rupa Goswami in the spiritual world. And here is Rupa Goswami displayed transcendental, he displayed and is an example of how we can develop our love for Krishna in any circumstance. So Narottam Das Thakur was born in a very aristocratic, wealthy Zamindar family, but it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken the tears of love from Nityananda Mahajan and saved them and put them in the river Padmavati, so that Narottam Das Thakur, when he came there, the river Padmavati would give this savings of prema bhakti to Narottam Das Thakur. So as he grew up in an aristocratic family, one day he went to the river Padmavati to take bath under the instructions of Super Soul. And when he put his foot into the water, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the Padmavati river that you'll know who Narottam Das Thakur is when your river overflows, when someone bathes in you. So as soon as he put his foot into the river, it overflowed, and the Padmavati river gave Narottam Das Thakur the gift of Prema Bhakti. And he became ecstatic, and he changed completely and became a renunciate, and he went to Vrindavan, and there he met his spiritual master, Lokanath Goswami, served him as a menial servant, because Lokanath Goswami was the Babaji. He did not want to take any disciples, but Narottam Das Thakur was determined that he'd become a disciple of Lokanath Thakur Goswami. So he very humbly cleaned the place where he evacuated every day, refined earth so that he could utilize it to clean himself afterwards, and then hid himself or disappeared. So that he did this in the middle of the night, so Lokanath Goswami wouldn't notice who was doing it. So after some time, Lokanath Goswami was wondering who is rendering me such nice, humble service, and he hid, and he saw Narottam Das Thakur performing this menial service, and he asked, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" So he said, "I want to become your disciple." Lokanath Goswami eventually saw the humble attitude that this devotee had, and he relented and accepted him as a disciple. Later on, he got instructions along with his friend Ramachandra, and just in the song we were singing, Ramachandra, and also Srinivasacharya. They were disciples of Jiva Goswami. They eventually went to Bengal to distribute this knowledge there, and they took their books. There's a whole pastime with one Hindambar, I believe his name was, a king there. What's that? Virhambir. Is that right? What's that? Yes, Virhambir. And there's a pastime how Virhambira was looking for great treasure. He had an astrologer, very good astrologer, by the way. And he was able to tell what goods people had passing by. This is possible by Prashna. So he did that, and when these books were coming by his kingdom, the Prashna said they have things which are invaluable. There's no limit to the value of it. So he said, "Oh, we're going to steal all this." So the king, when the Narottam Das Thakur and Srinivasacharya and Ramachandra were sleeping, the king had his men steal all the books that were in a big box, a big trunk. Took it to their kingdom, opened it up, and found out they were books. These three devotees, they realized that something's going wrong, so they found out that this king was one who stole it, So Srinivasacharya went with Ramachandra, and Narottam Das Thakur went to Bengal to distribute this knowledge. Ultimately, they defeated the Pandit of the king, and the king became a disciple. So there's many pastimes in Kaituri that there was a big festival honoring the Panchatattva. Many great personalities such as Janavi, the wife of Lord Nityananda, came to the festival, and many Sriniketa Ramdas, many great devotees came to the festival. And during the festival, the Panchatattva came. They were there as their deities, and they came off their altar and joined in the kirtan during the festival. So it must have been quite an ecstatic kirtan. That's called Harinam Sankirtan. It becomes so ecstatic here that Gaur Nitai from the altar come down and join the kirtan, then you know you're doing quite well. In any case, Narottam Das Thakur showed the example of humbly serving his spiritual master throughout his whole life, participating in the Sankirtan movement, and although he was born in a Kayastha family, which is considered low class, actually he was the highest elevated devotee, like Haridas Thakur and others, and therefore we honor him as our Acharya. We honor this day, remembering him, and of course we participate in our activities today, and if we can remember Narottam Das Thakur, his great achievements as the Acharya, how he spread Krishna consciousness, then that will help us become inspired in our humble service to Krishna also, and to our Acharyas. So thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. Is there time for questions? Any questions? Mike.
Hare Krishna Mahadana Pranam. My question is that when I read the scriptures like the Gita and the Bhagavatam, so I just read the translation and the purport. But when I try to memorize the verses, I find little bit difficulty. So can you suggest some tips for memorizing?
To memorize the verses?
Yes.
Just memorize it one word at a time, if you can't. And then what I used to do is, like, for instance, you take a verse like, what is a verse about the scripture? Yakshasra vidim utsrija vartate kamakarata dasasidim avatnotina sukamna param gatim. Yakshasra vidim utsrija. That one who gives up Shastra and works whimsically obtains neither peace nor happiness nor the supreme destination. So if you can remember it one word at a time, and then you go Yakshastra. So now I remember two words. Now put them together. Yakshastra. And if you understand what they mean, this Shastra, Vidim, their instructions, Utstrija, to give up. And if you can't remember that, then keep on going one word at a time and add it one word at a time. If you can't remember the first word, then memorize the first letter. And practice, ya. And then gradually practice. And eventually you get the whole thing. And then if you really want to memorize it, then do it every other word. Instead of yak shastram vidim, usrijas, yak vidim, vartate. Every other word. And after you memorize it every other word, then memorize it every third word. And then every fourth word. And then memorize it backwards. That's the way they used to learn the Vedas. So if you can do it backwards, yakshastra vidim uspada vartate karma karata nasasudim avatnoti nasukamna param gatim param, etc. backwards. Then you can't forget it. Matter of fact, you'll go to sleep at night and you'll still remember it. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much Maharaj for giving your association. Maharaj, now we see like when some devotee joins our movement, so thousands of devotees are already here. But in your case, if I'm not mistaken, Maharaj, please correct me if I'm wrong. So when you joined as a full-time devotee, so the only resident devotee he was living at that time.
What?
So when you were entering the temple, the only resident devotee in that temple he was living. And it would be nice, Maharaj.
And when I joined, there were Trivikram Maharaj had just moved in. Burjan Prabhu was living there, and Jagadish Prabhu was also living there. So we had a few devotees in the temple.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Maharaj, if you could share about your first deity worship experience. That's what we heard. The first service you got in ISKCON, that was like deity worship.
Well, when I first was worshiping, we had Lord Jagannath, Lord Baladev, and Srimati Subhadra Maharani. And when I first moved into the temple, Burjan Prabhu was still living there, and he was the pujari. So he had them on a bookshelf, and I asked him, who are they? And I'm sure he knew who they are, but he said he didn't know. So I didn't find out until Prabhupada came to Buffalo a couple of months later, and I asked Srila Prabhupada, I said, who's Lord Jagannath? So he told me he's Krishna. So I was very happy to find out I was worshiping Krishna. And then at that time we rarely used the telephone. We ever used the telephone. But Rupanuga called up Ramananda and he asked what Prabhupada was doing because he was traveling with Prabhupada. And he said we were doing arti to the deities because Prabhupada, he was traveling with Radha Krishna deities. So I thought, all right, I'll do arti, and I found out what the paraphernalia were. Because other than that, we were doing what was called bells. We were only offering incense. So then I found out that we were supposed to offer incense, we were supposed to offer some water, a napkin, and a flower. And if we had a fan, we could offer the fan also. So I did that first arti, but we didn't find out how long we were supposed to do it for. So the first arti we did for 2 hours. Because we didn't know. It took us a while to find out. Gradually we had reduced it because 2 hours is a little most of us were college students, so we'd miss class and we'd spend the whole day doing arti. So we gradually reduced it to, an hour. Then when we found out it was supposed to be 20 minutes for half an hour. All right. One more question here. We have a
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, thank you Maharaj for your kind lecture. Hare Krishna. Thanks Maharaj for your kind lecture. I want to ask that how to create interest in reading books more and more. Suppose we have completed one book and again we have to read that book for getting more. So how to create that interest in reading that same book more and more?
Well, there's 5 stages of reading. First stage is just hearing. Second stage is assimilating, so we see what it's saying. Third stage is becoming convinced of what it says by practicing it, following it, trying to put it into practice. Like, if we know something, we will argue about it. If we're convinced about something, we'll die for it. And the fourth stage is becoming skillful in applying it, especially in the loving exchanges with serving Krishna, serving the devotees, helping the innocent, and avoiding the atheists. Becoming skillful, getting a transcendental discrimination and expertise in following what the scriptures say. And the fifth stage is developing the spiritual character of a devotee, the transcendental qualities of a devotee, the characteristics, the qualities of a devotee, character. So we develop the character of a pure devotee, then we'll always remember Krishna, we'll be immersed in his transcendental pastimes, and we'll always be ecstatic. So every single progression in applying the scripture up to becoming a pure devotee gives one greater awareness, greater detachment from the material nature, and greater spiritual ecstasy. So it's all based upon service. Shushusho Shadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Syanmahat Sevaya Vipra Punyatirthini Shevana. So Shushusho, hearing with the attitude of serving, so we serve with care and attention, the instructions of the devotees, the pure devotees. And then the result is Krishna will give us kataruchi, a taste for hearing. And then we can go on hearing forever. As Sanjaya at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he said, in the repeated remembrance of this conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, I'm taking pleasure at every moment. And remembering the wonderful form of Krishna, I'm becoming ever more struck with wonder, and I rejoice again and again. So Sanjaya gives us the example. If we hear Bhagavad Gita over and over again, we'll simply become more ecstatic remembering it. Okay, one more. This is the last question. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, you spoke about we should develop an attitude of pleasing Krishna. That is the topmost. But in the when we are in three modes, naturally, such type of consciousness is very, very difficult. As Lord Kapila also explains in Srimad Bhagavatam, that three modes we have a different kind of desire. So sometimes we are not able to identify that these are not favorable, and then we should cultivate the only one desire, that is to please Krishna. So how to act?
We start out, pleasing Krishna means to follow the instructions of Krishna. So that's not so difficult. Krishna says, dance, chant, and take prasadam. So if we can chant, that's very nice. If we can dance, that's nice. And if we can't do anything else, at least take prasadam. That's also pleasing to Krishna. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.
His Grace, His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj ki